Hello, you beautiful people. Let's jump right back into the story. I had to cut it into several parts, and so this is going to be part two. Thank you. For my senior paper and my senior portfolio, I had to write a paper about a public policy thing um, and discuss like the you know the pros and the cons, or like the for and against arguments, um, and then talk about how I felt about it. Um, in hindsight, I hate it. I hate the way that it was set up, but that was what it was. We had to discuss like the economics of it. We had to discuss different things, and like you could choose any topic you wanted. And so, as soon as I was told about the assignment, I went to my teacher and the teacher's assistant and I said, "Hey guys, look, so I'm transgender and I want to do my piece on that." And so, you know, one of the requirements was that we do a PowerPoint and we present it. That was 25% of the grade. And so, they, you know, asked me, are you sure? Are you really sure that you're okay doing that and that's what you want? And um, I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone really famous had just come out at a presentation. I think it's a can't remember her name, but the girl from Juno, I think. And so she kind of was my inspiration for it. And yes, I really want to make the PowerPoint and present it. And they were really supportive. They kept telling me that I didn't have to come out to the class, but I knew that that was what I wanted to do, and it was important to me that I do it. Um, and it was as much a self love thing as anything else. You know, I'm going to tell everybody that I'm trans, and I'm going to be okay with that, and whatever repercussions happen, happen. But I also wasn't naive enough to think that I wasn't putting myself in danger. So I went around to the people at the school, like the principals and all of them, and just, let everybody know what was going to happen. I let my counselor know, who actually ended up coming to make sure that I was okay. Um, I let everybody at the school know what I was about to do, just so that if there was any issues, I had official support. Um, in hindsight, there's certain things that I did back then that were problematic or were you know very privileged of me, but you know hindsight's 2020. And but so that's what I did, and I ended up at the end of the year. I ended up coming out through my presentation, and it was terrifying, but it was worth it. When I finally said the words to the class, "I am trans," you could have heard a pin drop from 10 feet away. Like it was astonishing, and I really really loved the support that I got from some of the students. It wasn't as non-problematic as I wish, but they tried, and so that was nice. But word also got back to some people that knew my family, unfortunately. I think I was able to ask them to kind of be quiet about it, but they weren't happy, um, and they always treated me differently afterwards. But I knew that all that was going to happen. I'd been planning it for quite some time, then after I graduated, I kind of set my sights on where do I go now. Um, I worked some jobs. I didn't go to college right away, and I kind of put who I am on the back burner because it was necessary for me to do at the time, as as painful as it was. Um, I didn't transition. I didn't do any of that. Um, I kept trying to honestly convince myself that I wasn't trans, sadly, um, or that it wasn't a big deal. Um, and it wasn't until one night I had a dream, actually, where in the dream I experienced going through transition and all the way up through, the final stages and seeing how I looked. Obviously, it was in a dream, so it wasn't super realistic, but it was so emotional, and it was probably the happiest I've ever felt in my life. And then I woke up, and that was probably the saddest I've ever felt in my life because I realized that it wasn't real. But I also realized that it can become real. And so immediately, like the next day, I started calling doctors. I started, I talked to my therapist that I had at the time about it, and he actually ended up recommending a support group to me. Um, and I went to the support group. I don't go there any longer, unfortunately, but I went and I met some really cool people there. Actually, I met the people who ended up becoming my current roommates there, um, and I met a guy. Didn't end up going anywhere, but we ended up going on a date. And um, before the date, because I thought I had a close relationship with my dad, and for a father and son, it was fairly close. Extremely problematic, but fairly close. Um, and so I told him I had a date, and he goes, "Well, I hope you've met her before." And me trying to be smooth said, "Yeah, I've met them before." But he didn't hear them, he heard him. And so he like looked at me with this really angry, surprised look, and you know, him. And I go, "Yeah, okay, see, bye." And I scooted out, and I went on the date. It was not an enjoyable date anyway, which made it all the worse because like shit, at least I could have had a better date. Anyway, um, but I got home, and as soon as I got home, my dad was in the kitchen, or was he in the living room? I don't know. He was right there, and he looks at me and he says, "You have 3 months to pack your shit and get out of my house." And it was kind of what I expected. In fact, I didn't expect him to give me 3 months, but he did, thankfully. And, I had been, that's kind of why I had been working, and I'd been trying to wait to come out at all until I was out of everybody's house. Um, None of how I came out was working. None of it worked out, really, except for me coming out to my mother as trans. That one worked out. I had, sorry, I keep missing things. I had just a couple months before that, I had come out to my mom as bi as well, and so like now I had both of my parents that knew. My mother I didn't mean to come out to as bi, but she kept yelling at me, asking me why I supported the LGBT community so strongly, and I just kind of kept trying to dodge her questions, and she wouldn't let me. And until I finally screamed, how am I supposed to tell you that I like men too? And like just with that bomb dropped, it was interesting. And then she ended up throwing me out 2 weeks later because I had a girlfriend. But like completely, my my stepfather. The last thing my stepfather ever said to me was, and this isn't fun to hear, but the last thing he ever said to me was, "We don't want a faggot living in this house." And that was painful. I never really had a close relationship with him, but to hear him finally voice what I knew was excruciatingly painful. And so I left my mom's house, had moved back in with my dad, and that's when my dad found out. And then the next week, I went to the trans support group that I was a part of and kind of talked to the people who are now my roommates, just completely out of frustration, just venting. And, I don't know what I'm going to do. My dad's kicking me out. And it just so happened that they, had an extra room that was going to be available around the same time. And so um, I ended up making plans and moving in to where I'm still living. That was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now. And so thank God I got so lucky because I didn't know where I was going to go. Um, and all right, everybody. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this time. But I will be posting the last video hopefully tomorrow, if not tomorrow, on Tuesday. Um, I'm sorry that I have kind of slowed down. I wanted to move a bit faster, but I just don't have the spoons, honestly, and I'm about to start 2 jobs, so things are a bit complicated in my life. But I love you all. See you later.